speaking of straight talk, we've got on the line Democrat delegate from the Fairfax-Arlington area representing the 48th District of Virginia, Bob Brink. Delegate, great to have you on with us.
Well, thanks, John. Thanks for inviting me.
It's always a pleasure, especially to have another member of the all-powerful Northern Virginia caucus. You guys get it done, no question. I've relocated to Northern Virginia from the south side, from the Hampton Roads area, and I was complaining forever, why can't the Hampton Roads caucus be as effective as the Northern Virginia caucus? So I gave up on it and just came up here.
I feel your pain. Traditionally, Northern Virginians have worked pretty well together, especially on transportation issues, and it's something that has added to our strength. And of course, we're even stronger now because so much of the population of the state has shifted to Northern Virginia, as well as to that Golden Crescent that starts in Loudoun and goes all the way down to Virginia Beach. But in Virginia Beach, you've got some problems of water you have to get over or under, and so that poses particular challenges for you all down there.
It's just take it from me, it's a nightmare trying to get from point A to point B and not getting any better at all. Now, Governor Bob McDonnell came out last week in his address to the convening of the General Assembly and said, hey, I've got a plan finally for transportation. I want to eliminate the gasoline tax. That's a thing of the past. No growth. And I want to add a sales tax, and I want to take $300 million out of the general fund, and I want to get this fixed. And you basically said, hey, Governor, thanks, but no thanks. Why?
You've outlined pretty well the main elements of the governor's package, and to tell you the truth, I and a lot of members on both sides of the aisle have some real concerns about all of those elements. Let's go through them. First of all, as you mentioned, he would eliminate the gas tax, the 17.5-cent gas tax that we, which means Virginians and non-Virginians, anybody who drives through the state, now pays, and he would replace that with an addition to the sales tax. And the claim is that this would be revenue neutral, that people would save in gasoline prices what they would be paying extra in sales tax. But there's no evidence of that at all. There are some states that have higher taxes, that have lower priced gas. I think the most likely outcome is that the distributors and the people up the line would simply take that 17.5 cents and say thank you very much, and our gas prices would be the same.
Well, if I could just interject, Delegate Brink, they're doing that in Virginia right now, because I've been saying on the air week after week after week that the gasoline tax in North Carolina is 15 cents higher than Virginia. And the price of gas in North Carolina, than when you go over the bridge in Virginia, is the same. So where's that 15 cents?
Well, that's right. It's not going into anybody's pocket except big oil. So what this would do would be to benefit big oil, and it would benefit out-of-state drivers.
You're right.
So this is the Snooki Relief Act of 2013.
The Snooki Relief Act. I like that. Powerful stuff. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all, because you're absolutely right. There'd be no savings. The oil companies would just take that as a windfall and say, hey, Virginia, thanks. You know, the other thing that is aggravating to people is from the north to the south, you've got to get through Virginia to go anywhere. So it's like people from out of state are going to be utilizing our highway system for free, right?
That's right. And we're still going to be paying for their roads when we drive in their states that have a gasoline tax. So it's not a good deal for Virginians all the way from Abingdon to Arlington.
Why not keep the gas tax as we have it now, and then also do an increase in the sales tax so we can get the money that we need to fix the transportation crisis that hasn't been solved in the state for over 3 decades?
Well, I think that's something that we have to look at pretty carefully. Now, when you get into questions of the sales tax, there's another element of this that causes a lot of us concern, and that is going into what's called a general fund revenue source, like the sales tax. And what you'd be doing there is putting transportation, which is an important consideration, but putting that in competition with our schools, with health care, with public safety. And I don't think anybody says, he's talking about going into the tune of $283 million over the next 5 years. I don't think anybody could claim with a straight face that we can take $283 million out of schools, health care, and public safety without having some pretty damaging consequences to the services our citizens get.
Well, especially because we don't know how we're going to fund several pieces of Obamacare when eventually it's going to get hammered down to the states. Now, the other thing that we want to ask you, the proposal that the governor outlined, obviously there's pieces of it that we don't on the show agree with. Conservatives have attacked it. Democrats have attacked it. But my question is, can we come together in this short session and finally get a comprehensive plan to solve our transportation crisis?
I really hope so. I've been down here. This is my 16th session, and year after year after year, we've postponed coming to reckoning with the problem, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Especially in that area along 95 and 64. It's really starting to damage not only our quality of life, but also our reputation as a great state to do business in. Down in Hampton Roads, we've got an incredible port, the best deepwater port on the East Coast, and unless we take advantage of it and have a good transportation network in and out of that port, we're not going to be able to do what we should be able to do with it. And as a transplant to Northern Virginia, you know what our traffic is like up there, and there are companies that are starting to say, I'm sorry, that's too high a price to pay.
We're speaking to Delegate Bob Brink from the 48th District, which covers Arlington and Fairfax in Northern Virginia. And Delegate Brink, you're also a member of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, which is a very key organization when it comes to how we deal with our friends in Maryland and the District of Columbia and so forth. How is what you're proposing as an alternative way to fund transportation going to impact our relationship and how we might be taxed as Virginia commuters going into other areas?
Well, it's really important that we do everything we can to maintain a good working relationship between Northern Virginia, the District, and Maryland, because our transportation needs overlap so much. I mean, one obvious thing is Metro. We have to be sure that we have an adequately funded and adequately maintained Metro system, which means the cooperation of the District and Maryland. We need to recognize that even if we have all of our transportation problems solved in Virginia, once you get to Cabin John Bridge or Woodrow Wilson Bridge, we've got real problems there. And so it's very important, especially with Metro and with the Silver Line out to Dulles coming online, that we have adequate, as I said, both adequate funding and especially adequate maintenance of a system that's getting to be over 30 years old now.
I was actually going to ask you about that. The Silver Line, for those listeners downstate in Richmond and Hampton Roads, is the line that would go from essentially the District of Columbia, but more importantly from just outside, starting in Arlington and going all the way out to Dulles Airport, our major international outlet here in Northern Virginia. Is the Silver Line, in terms of not only completion but maintenance, funded?
They're putting together a funding package that I think will do the job. Now, one thing we have to look at is to make sure that the state of Virginia, down here in Richmond, that the state recognizes how important the Silver Line is to our long-term economic growth, and that it does its share along with the local governments. Fairfax and Arlington have stepped up to the plate. The business owners along that corridor have done their part, and Loudoun County also last year decided to opt into the system. It's going to make a huge difference in growth of the tax base. You look at what the Metro line through Arlington does for Arlington's tax base and the help that it gives to Arlington homeowners in relieving their real estate prices.
As someone in Arlington and Fairfax, obviously, you do still have concerns about the other corridors that run through the state, 64, 81, so on and so forth. For those listeners just joining us, before I hand you back to John, can you briefly outline the measures that you're proposing as the alternative to Governor McDonald's funding of the transportation issue? Just briefly before I hand you back to John.
Well, one of the things that we have to look at in the other corridors is another component of the governor's transportation funding plan, which is to impose tolls on existing roadways. He wants to toll part of I-95. There's been speculation about tolling part of 64 down in Hampton Roads. And I don't think it's good for the economy of those regions, and the members of the General Assembly who represent those regions are pretty strong against that. It's a different question when you have something like the express lanes up on the Beltway from I-95 all the way up to Tyson's. Now they opened a couple of just before Thanksgiving. They're proving to be a tremendous addition to capacity and a relief on the regular roadway there, and you can get into and out of Tyson's much more easily than you could before they opened. But this is new capacity. I don't think it's right, especially to the people who live in those regions, to slap tolls on an already existing roadway simply to pay for maintenance.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense to us. We happen to agree we need a comprehensive plan. Delegate Brink, for transportation, it's got to include a gasoline tax. There's no question that's got to be part of the equation. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us. Democrat Delegate Bob Brink from District 48, Arlington and Fairfax. We got to solve transportation in this short session. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for the time.